Recently, someone posted in the comments that I seem to win far more trophies than he does. Well, the game actually doesn't favour me, but there are perhaps a few things that I do differently to most. And maybe it's some of these things that make all the difference. And so today I've decided to explain how I win so many trophies, and there are 5 tips that I'm going to share with you, including the secret stat. Let's go and kick some balls. Hello and welcome to FM with Old Man Phil. And if you are a brand new visitor, I'm Phil and welcome to the channel. And I do win a lot of trophies, and we are currently here at Norwich sitting on the cusp of a clean sweep. We've already won the Community Shield, we've won the Carabao Cup, we've won the FA Cup, we've won the Super Cup, we've won the Premier League. We only have to beat Juventus to win the Champions League, and then we will have done a clean sweep of trophies. And this we can add to last season, where we won 4 out of 5 trophies, and we can add that to a clean sweep of trophies that we won after 5 seasons at Benfica. And trophies just keep coming. And I am not managing the best teams in the world. In fact, this Norwich team is far from being the greatest team in the world. It's full of good players, but there are very few great players. And even in the Burnley save in the live stream, we have one of the poorest squads in the Premier League, and we are still sitting in 9th halfway through the season, and I think that we will qualify for a European place this season. So how on earth are we doing it? Well, perhaps it's to do with 5 little things that I might be doing differently. And I'm going to share those 5 things that I do today, including what is becoming known among my followers as the Phil's Index. And we will look at that secret stat that I use, which can change a game dramatically. But before we go into my 5 tips, which will help you to win more trophies during your saves, there are 2 bonus tips, and these are things that you should be thinking about already. Winning cups is about performance on the day, but winning titles is about endurance. And so we need to train it. And during pre-season, I will always train for the first 4 weeks endurance first thing on a Monday morning. And then after that initial 4 weeks, I will then schedule it once a fortnight on a Monday morning, right up to the end of September. And this will ensure that your players are in good shape at the end of the season, where sometimes teams can fall away and go into a very poor run of form. This is just that they haven't got the stamina, the endurance to last the full season. So make sure at the beginning of the season you're training endurance regularly. And the second bonus tip is rotation. And you will have a big squad of players, and it's very, very important that you use all these players. A lot of people just try to stick to one 11 and try to go through the season with a minimum of fuss with that 11. You have 24, 25 players in your squad. It's really important that you share the load among them. It's important that your first team players are allowed to rest. And you have players in your squad who you think are good backup players. And if they're not good backup players, then what are they doing in your squad? So rotate, rotate, rotate. And this is particularly important during the months of November, December and January, where fixtures come thick and fast and players will need to be rested. So those are 2 bonus tips that you can put into practice straight away, and that will help you again in terms of winning trophies, because trophies are won at the end of the season, not at the beginning of the season in general. And so let's go to the 5 things that I do that might be different to what you do. And the first tip that I will give you is to do with your tactics. And every time I load a save, I am going to start right from the get-go by loading up 3 different styles of play, 3 different tactics that all play very differently and all have differences in the way we defend, in the way we attack, in the way our lines are positioned. And so in this one you can see it's just a fairly standard positive style of play. We have a high press, we have a higher line of engagement, and we press and we trigger press quite hard, and we look to get in the face of the opposition. And in the next one, it is a much more attacking style, and this one We have a much higher defensive line and we have a high press. Again, we are trigger pressing a lot, but we don't counter press in this one. We do counter attack, but we don't counter press. And then it is a much shorter style of passing. It is a possession-based game that we are playing, although it is still a very attacking system. And the idea is to get numbers up the pitch. And then the third tactic that I've loaded up is the same shape as the first one, but this time we are playing with a low block, we have a higher line of defense, just trigger pressing slightly more often. We're not trigger pressing too much, and in this one we are not going to counter press or counter. We're just simply going to hold our shape and slow everything down. It is a very short passing game. It's designed to be very disciplined, to keep the ball from the opposition and to give them no space in transition when we lose the ball. It's just basically keep the ball from them and try to frustrate them as we progress through the game. And all my teams will be trained in these 3 different styles of play. The first few years of your save are basically getting your players to be familiar with the style of play that you want them to play and to generally increase the ability within your squad to make your squad a much better team. And so therefore, during the first few years, I am just really only focused on this familiarity at the top. And as you can see, all our tactics, this hasn't been used as much as the other 2, but as you can see, our squad are very familiar with the 3 different styles of play that I want them to play. And this is very useful because if I want to switch to a more attacking style of play, I'm not just pushing players into different spaces and hoping that they come up with the goods. I know that this team are capable of playing very well in this style and are very familiar with it. I think this is very important so that when you do need to shift to a different style, your players are very familiar with what is being asked of them. This can help you win a lot of games rather than draw or lose. So basically build up familiarity with 3 different styles of play over the first couple of seasons. And so on to tip 2. And remember what we said earlier, that titles are generally won with endurance, but cup finals are won on the day. And once you are in the cup final, it is very, very important that the team are in the right state to finish what might be a very long match. And so tip number 2 is preparing for extra time. And if we are playing a tactic in a cup final that has a high intensity, as we may well be, then we have to be sure that we are going to be able to last the whole 120 minutes if it comes to extra time. And there are a number of things that you can do when preparing your team for extra time. I have done a whole video on this, preparing for extra time, so I'm not really going to waste too much time in this particular video. If you are interested in learning how to navigate extra time, then I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. But in a nutshell, what you've got to do is you've got to ensure that the 4 players who have been on the pitch for the entire 120 minutes, remember you will have substituted 6 players, so they should not be tired during extra time. But the remaining 4 players who've been on since the start, they will need to be protected. And basically you're going to maybe ask the team to play in a different way to help them. So if we are playing with this high intensity tactic, I might switch to a lower intensity tactic to help the players who are extremely tired. And there's a number of things that you can also help them to do. For example, if Raheem is particularly tired, then you can tell him to trigger press less. You can tell him to dribble less. You can tell him to just play a shorter passing game. You can tell him to ease off the tackling and to hold his position. Anything that you can do to help him to conserve energy. Remember, as the extra time goes on, he is going to become more and more tired. And if he is a winger, then perhaps you can tell him to dribble less. But he already has dribble more hard-coded, so perhaps we'll just change his role and we'll make him a playmaker so we can tell him to dribble less. Do whatever you can to help that player to get through the extra 30 minutes that he has to get through. By using this method, I've managed to win a lot more finals in extra time than I have lost. And so it's well worth having a look at the full video, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And so that brings us on to tip number 3. And tip number 3 is also about preparation for a final and how we set the team up for training during that week before a big game. And as you can see, we are going to be in a week's time in a final, the Champions League final against Juventus. And so we need to go to our training and we need to set up for this week. So we will go to our calendar, and what we're going to do, which has already been done, we're going to ask our assistants to prepare a big match training for this particular week. Now I can see that there are still things in there which we clearly do not need. So we're going to change a few things, and we don't need to do any physical training at the moment. So in there we are going to do a little bit of attacking free kicks. We don't need to be concentrating on defensive shadow play or attacking shadow play. So in here, I'm going to be doing attacking free kicks. And in this one, I'm going to do attacking corners. I don't want to do too much of that. Maybe we will go in here and swap that one, and this one can become penalties. We can do penalties twice. We are not the best team in terms of penalties, so I don't think that it would do us any harm to practice penalties a little bit more. As far as I am concerned, overall training is not necessary for this week, the last week of the season. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to actually do some defending of corners. And so once that's done, I'm going to confirm that. And now I have changed this to what I believe is really important. It's little things in finals that will win you finals, not the big things. We're doing a bit of defensive shape, a bit of attacking movement, some pre-match tactics. And so all the rest of it is going to be on set pieces and penalties, and this is where it might make the difference for you. And so, yes, tip number 3, make sure that your training is the right setup the week before a big final. And so that brings us to tips 4 and 5, and these are the tips that will help you to make in-game changes and to turn defeats into draws or even victories. And tip 4 is to do with lines and how important it is to recognize when lines are not working within a game. And to do this, we are going to quickly just look at what happened in the semi-final of the Champions League against Barcelona. When we played the first leg, we went away to Barcelona and we won quite comfortably by 3-1. But in the second leg, and I basically thought if we can score early, then we will win the tie. It will be impossible for them to come back. But it backfired because after 20 minutes, we were 2 goals down. And by 25 minutes, I had noticed that all my defenders were playing really badly. Now, it is not unusual for a single defender to have a bad game, and at which point you probably decide to substitute him. But to have all 4 and the goalkeeper playing badly, it's probably not the player's fault. It's probably your fault, and it's probably that you have set the lines up incorrectly. Having noticed at 2-0 down and then made the changes, I made the change too late because what happened was they went 3-0 up and actually took the lead in the tie. And so now I am in real trouble. I've got a back line that's not playing very well, and I'm also 3 goals behind and really in trouble. But what I did was I changed it from the high press system to the low block system. All I wanted to do was to keep possession away from the opposition, to limit their chances, and just hope that we could get 1 goal and get back into the game. And what happened in the second half was that Lewis Wilden managed to get himself a hat-trick. And so, just by adjusting the lines when I noticed that the whole back line were playing badly, and by changing the system of play, we managed to get more possession, more chances, and we managed to turn the game around. And that was very hard earned, but turned out to be exactly the right decision. And so tip 4 is basically understand that if your whole defense is playing badly, not just one player, then it's not their problem, it's yours. Do something with the lines. And often the solution can be really simple. And I will often feel if I am playing against a very pacey team or a team that is pressing high up the pitch against me, or if my defenders seem to be dilly-dallying on the ball and getting caught in possession, then the solution to that might be very simple. And it might be that all you need to do is pull the line down to a standard line, and then this will give your defenders a lot more time when they are in possession, and hopefully they won't be getting caught on the ball, or faster players won't be getting past them, or teams who press high up the pitch won't be putting them under too much pressure. When I do this, however, I will probably use this step up more, because then that asks the players to just press a little bit more to compact the midfield space, and this prevents the long balls from the midfield over the top. Lines are very, very important, and where you position the lines for each game will have an effect on the match, 100% guaranteed. And so when you see all your defenders are playing poorly, not just one or two, but if they are all playing badly, you know it is something to do with the lines. Make some adjustments, change the tactic, or just push the line up a notch or pull the line back a notch. And you will make a difference, just as we did against Barcelona. And that brings me on to tip number 5. And tip number 5, what some of my followers are calling the Phil's ratio, is really a very, very simple concept to look at. And all I have to do within game is look at this one statistic that's on the screen. And to do that, we're going to look at the game in the FA Cup final. Now, we beat West Ham by 4-0, and on the surface, that might look like it was a very easy victory. And if we look at the stats, West Ham had 11 shots, 2 on target. We had 16 shots and 6 on target. We had a much better XG, and we completely dominated possession. So it would look to you pretty much that this was an easy victory. But it wasn't, and I had to make a change after half-time because I was very concerned that we were going to lose this game. And at half-time, it was still 0-0. Now, West Ham had got 5 shots and 2 on target. We had got 7 shots and 1 on target. And that meant that the shots to shots on target ratio, West Ham were actually ahead in terms of their percentage. That worried me a lot, because if they were getting more shots on target, if their percentage was better, that made us vulnerable to leaking a goal. And I was very worried that West Ham would score with one of their shots and we would lose the final. So just after half-time, I decided to make a change, which probably would have confused a lot of people. Why are you making a change? It's 0-0. Why are you doing that? And basically, I was playing in the low block. It wasn't obviously working because our shots to shots on target ratio was very low. And so what I did was I changed it up to the high press formation. And what happened after that, I was able to watch us getting more opportunities, more shots on target, and eventually the shots on target went in and we managed to win the game by 4-0. This is a very, very important stat. It is the only stat I look at during a game. And if you are losing this, for example, if they are 60% and you are 50%, you are losing the match. You need to somehow get that shots on target ratio up in your favour, not in theirs. And so you need to make a change if you are losing this percentage battle in the shots and shots on target. And I've been looking at this for a long time, maybe for about 3 months. And by analysing this and by just tracking this throughout a game and making changes when I'm not winning this battle, I've turned defeats into draws and wins, and I have turned draws into victories, as I did here, just by recognising that we were losing this shots on target battle. Even though they had less shots, their percentage on target was better than ours. We had more shots, but we had more off target, and so they were winning the battle. I had to turn that around. By shifting to a different tactic, we were able to turn that around, and we scored 4 and won 4-0. By using this, I have found now that winning games in FM never got easier. And so that's it for my 5 tips for winning trophies in FM. And that's it for this video. If you are brand new to the channel and you like FM content and you love to see people suffer playing this game, well, I can tell you, you are definitely in the right place. So why not subscribe, like, watch, comment, do all that good stuff and help the channel to grow. Help us to support the good work of the British Heart Foundation. And all that remains to be said now is, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. Stay safe, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.